And of course I've got memories here of my old crazy pal, and Lord knows the world needs more eccentrics. And I'm talking about Stanley Marsh III. When we were on the first national book tour for Route 66, the Mother Road, Stanley hosted Suzanne and I with his lovely wife out at Toad Hall, out at his home. And there were cowboys and cowgirls and chaps chasing each other on the ground with lariats. There were guinea fowl and peacocks running around. It was just really sweet. And Stanley said to me, he said, you know, we would love it if you'd come out here and you could stay here and write. And I said, you are crazy. You were just loco. I couldn't get a lick of work done in this atmosphere. But I love it, and I love those Cadillacs. Now they're in, I think he painted it up again turquoise, and immediately new generations of graffiti are on there. Now, of course, everybody's cannibalizing the car, so Stanley's going to have to put some of his boys out there, I'll tell you. Then you're in for a world of hurt. Memories, though. Memories of Vega and Bushland and Adrian and that sweet little landing of Landergan in that first meeting. That was the domain then of George and Melba Rook. Yeah, who remembers the Rooks?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was another gentleman with a ZZ Top beard. Not a better man or woman walked the earth. I saw Melba Rook take in some people that were down and out. They could have been people from the 30s. And they came there, and I know they were looking for change just to buy their kids a glass of milk. And Melba saw that the kids had collected some rocks. And she said, you know, I could take rocks in exchange for some food. And she did. The little girl gave her 2 rocks, and she fed that family. That was Melba Rook. And George always had a cigarette in his mouth. Well, it killed him. But by God, he was a good man, sitting there at Landergan, Texas. George and Melba Rook. And then, of course, you go down to Vega, and you hit Adrian, and you got the bent door, and you got all those great old spots, and you have possibly the best gimmick of all on Route 66, the midpoint. There's only one midpoint on the road, right? And Fran's got it. And I hope, and I pray, if Fran, and God bless her, she's paid her dues, if she does indeed hang it up and retire, that place has got to go into good hands. And it's all hope that that happens. And I dare say it will, because it's a natural to go in there. But somebody better get Joanne Harwell's recipe for ugly crust pie, too. Yeah, a bunch of us are going down there. We're continuing our book tour tomorrow, and we're going to have kind of a brunch down there with a smorgasbord of various pies and a little bit of discussion. I've been in there talking to old crop dusters, to old renegades and cowboys. It's just a great place to sit and converse down at Adrian. And then memories, of course, of one of my favorite places on the entire road in the Panhandle, Glen Rio, where you can stand with one foot in Texas and one foot in New Mexico. One leg in the central time zone, one in the mountain time zone, which, as you know, tends to make you schizophrenic. Glen Rio. Oh, a lot of you can remember Glen Rio the way I remember it, when it was really going and blowing. And a lot of you can remember it from long before I was even out there. You know, the Arisman family, Homer Arisman, ran that place. The last in New Mexico, the first in Texas. So what a gimmick that was. But I can remember being, and I've told you this, a 19-year-old Marine with a sea bag, hitchhiking, going in that place in the middle of the night, and it was like Times Square, and everybody's running around. And Homer Arisman, they're pumping gas, they're cutting pie, they're sailors on the telephone, everybody's moving, cars, trucks, people, commerce, activity, life. Amazing. Glen Rio, right there, that little border town that's now almost a full ghost town. Glen Rio. Arisman fed the road crews, that paved the road through that country. Arisman, like Melba Rook, took care of the Okies and the Arkies and the busted tenant farmers that came through there. Cut them a break, gave them food, lent them money, pay me back, not thinking they ever would get paid back, not caring. Great man. And you all know one of my favorite stories about Glen Rio. And that's when I slipped in there with some bikers some years ago. And I wanted to look, as I always do, at those derelict buildings with the blank windows just staring out at that old road, at that borderland crossing of the Mother Road. And as I snooped around looking for a better road treasure, I found up in a pack rat nest some old brittle big manila envelopes, and inside were all those checks. And it would all have the Longhorn Cafe stamp on it, on Highway 66, Glen Rio. And these were checks made out to vendors, to Coca-Cola, and to businesses in Amarillo, and Tucumcari, and Santa Rosa, and other points, for the air conditioner, a swamp cooler, for butter, for milk, for victuals, for supplies, for paper towels, for shop towels. All this commerce. And then in the back were the true treasure checks. And these were the paychecks for those waitresses. And they weren't real big checks, but they were hard-earned checks. And good, many of them were noted as advance checks. Advance, advance, advance. And they were made out to girls named Dora and Margaret and Mildred and Elizabeth and Tilly. And that's when I thought about being a Marine in my tropical uniform, walking in there. And I remembered years later how Delbert True told me when he and his daddy would walk in there and Miss Arisman would see him, the first thing she'd do is take a big pie out and cut it in half and give Delbert half and his daddy half. And I wondered what became of all those. Those were real waitresses. Those were the real thing. And of course, like so many things, they had died or gone on or moved away. But by God, those checks, and I tucked them into my leather jacket, are still some of my most prized possessions. Those checks, like so much else we all have, either here or in our home or special place, those things are the DNA of our road. And we need to keep that in mind. And we need to keep in mind, if we do let down our guard, we're going to have Glen Rios all over the place. But I'll leave you with one more quick image of Glen Rio, maybe a happier one. We slipped in there one day, and it was windy, and we were walking down the old road, as if we were going to walk down to San Juan or something, but we were just walking. And on the wind, I heard laughter, and I wondered where that came from. And we went a little bit further and down the weeds, right in the middle of the old road. Lying on the road, all he had on were sandals and shorts, and he was laying on his back, and he had a big tortoise up in the air, and he was talking to it and laughing at it, and it was Bob Waldmeyer. I would give 4 royalty checks if we had a camera that day. But yet again, maybe it was good we didn't, because I've got that picture right here, and I can still hear that man talking to that shelled amphibian as if he were talking to his brother, and indeed he was. And they were laughing and sharing something that only Bob Waldmeyer could share with a land tortoise. And I didn't, Bob Waldmeyer was my very good friend, and I didn't even tell him I was there. I backed off, because that was his time. That's a good memory. And that's what I want you all to build, like you were doing this weekend, and continue to build them as you go along. Build these memories that we have on the Panhandle, or up in Illinois, in the big cities, out on the coast. They're great things to have. But always remember that this place, this weekend, was special. You're in a special place. You're in a special time. You're in today. And by God, every day you get up, you need to try to make that day the best. Make that day a masterpiece. It's really important. Not everyone can live out here in the Panhandle. Not everyone can live in the Panhandle of Oklahoma. Not everyone can live in Seattle, Washington. Every place you have to have a special character and feeling. But this is a place where people value the land, and they value their sky, and they value their space, and that eternal space, this ocean of land out here. So that's what I suggest you do. Later tonight, tomorrow morning, when you're going your various ways, I want you to look at those fleeting shadows and the ghost places out there. I want you to try to catch the smell of some of George Rook's tobacco. I want you to hear Bob's laugh riding the wind. But you've got to listen for that laugh, and you have to never, ever forget all of those who came this way and all of the others yet to come. Enjoy the ride.